the BCHL leaving Hockey Canada, how this affects you guys. That's the whole point of this video here. We're gonna break down how it affects you, specific rules, how they've changed, and all this kind of stuff. We're gonna dive right into the details now, just so you know, okay, if I am playing the BCHL or if I wanna play in the BCHL, how's this gonna affect me moving forward and getting to that college commitment? So we're gonna dive into that. What's going on, guys? This is Braden from Advancement Hockey Advising here. And today we've got some big news, the biggest news in junior hockey right now to announce, and that is the BCHL leaving Hockey Canada as of June 1st. They made this announcement maybe from the time of filming when this gets published, maybe like a month ago, a bit over that. It's really, really big news because prior to the pandemic, like every reputable junior league was sanctioned, at least in Canada. Obviously, there's a few unsanctioned leagues. We're not gonna go down that rabbit hole today. Before that, like all the reputable ones were sanctioned, and this is the first really high-end junior league that's become unsanctioned now in Canada, or that's going to become unsanctioned. So this is really, really big news. For me personally, I feel like this might start a trend with other junior leagues moving forward. It may or may not, so it might just be as is. They might rejoin one day, the other leagues might follow suit, they might not, but I feel like this is a really bold move in the world of hockey, and maybe a trend might start here moving forward. So we'll see, only time will tell. Now, as to how this affects you guys, we're going to dive into that, but only after you absolutely destroy that like button. Consider hitting that subscribe button and notification bell if you're new here so you don't miss another video moving forward. All right, now right into the video. All right, so to get it started here, what are the main reasons why the BCHL left Hockey Canada? There had to be a lot of upside because the upside of staying in Hockey Canada is getting a lot of funding, being part of a sanctioned framework that people find reputable. So there had to be very, very good reasons for them to announce this move to leave. The two biggest reasons that I was able to find here is that they want, first of all, more younger players under 18. They don't want a limit on it. They don't want players to have to relocate, do all this complicated stuff to be able to play if they're under 18. They just want to bring under 18 players. So guys who are 16 and 17, really elite players. Imports, you know, not getting rid of the rules on imports, but really drastically changing the rules on imports. And 20-year-olds being able to get more of those, not being bound by those Hockey Canada rules and frameworks. That's one big reason. Secondly, when you're bound to Hockey Canada, if you want a player, you have to pay money for them, right? With another Hockey Canada sanctioned league. So because of that, here, if they're unsanctioned, now players can just come. They don't have to, you know, bargain and trade with other teams and stuff. Players can just come to the BCHL when they want. The downside for that, though, is that players can just leave whenever they want as well. So it's kind of a, you know, push and pull. It's a catch-22, a bit of a downside. But overall, I feel like the BCHL felt like this was definitely worth it in their eyes. So they're not really bound by as many rules and they can do some internal governing. And they thought there was more upside than downside. So that's why they decided to make the switch. All right, now how does this decision affect you guys? So like I touched on before, players under 18 can now just go to the BCHL. They haven't announced any specific limits yet or any like specific amount that need to play each game is going to be announced probably in the future, or that I know of. I don't know of any specific announcements yet, but basically if you're 16, 17, you want to go play in the BCHL, if you're good enough, you definitely can. So this is probably going to make the league a little bit younger unless they put a cap on how many they can have on teams. That's definitely a big change that will affect the league and will affect you guys if you want to go play there or not. Next, there will still be import 20-year-old rules. You know, maybe for the younger guys, there might be a certain cap as well, how many can play, how many can't play and all that stuff. But overall, with the import and the 20-year-old rules, are still going to be, but it's not going to be the same ones as Hockey Canada, right? The BCHL, they're going to set their own rules now. So time will tell if when the rules are going to be set in place. I've heard rumors that for imports or 20-year-olds or one of the two, it might be, you know, a 6 limit, but honestly, don't take it for an actual number here. Take it with a grain of salt because I've only heard rumors. I haven't seen written and in fact that it's going to be a certain number. So there will be rules in place. The BCHL is going to govern them internally. For me, like before I see it on paper, I don't want to like put any fake announcements here. So definitely keep an eye out. We'll probably make announcements moving forward when we know the rule for sure. Next, I think the biggest thing that's really going to affect players here is being unsanctioned. It's going to be similar to how the NCDC operates. So in terms of like players wanting to go to the BCHL and leaving the BCHL, it's got to be much, much easier to do it. So before, when they were a sanctioned league, when a team signs you, they own your rights. So as a player, if you want to go to another sanctioned team, so let's say you want to go to the AJHL or the CCHL or any sanctioned league in Canada, and even a few in the US, you have to get your team's approval. They have to agree either a player they're going to trade for you or money or something like that. They have to agree on it. And then and only then can you get traded, and you have to want to report to go. So it's very complicated. A lot of power comes from the teams when they do this. So you can't just leave. You have to to, talk to your team, agree to get traded and all that stuff. A lot of GMs are great. A lot of GMs don't hold back players, but I've seen in the past a lot of GMs give players a hard time and make it tough for them to leave. So for this, it's going to be a huge advantage to the players where they can just go and they can leave whenever they want because they're not sanctioned anymore. So that's going to be a huge pro for you guys, for the players. The flip side, if you're signed with an AJ team and you don't like it there, you can go to a BCHL team technically, or you can go to an NCDC team, right? They're unsanctioned, so you can just leave the teams. Vice versa, if you're in a BCHL team, you're not happy there, whatever, you can go to a sanctioned team and not have your rights kept, if that kind of makes sense. Now, the catch-22 with this is that let's say you're signed with an AJ team, okay? You're not really liking it there, whatever. You run to the BCHL or the NCDC or another unsanctioned league, and then you don't like it there. Well, you're kind of trapped. You can't go to, without the team's approval, you can't go to another team in the BC, okay, unless they trade you, right, within the league. But you also have to go back to your AJ team. Now, if your AJ team, you kind of just left, you didn't leave on good terms, they hold your rights. So it's gonna be very tricky to be able to get another sanctioned team, okay? Hopefully this makes sense for you guys. If you can go from sanctioned to unsanctioned, or from unsanctioned to sanctioned quite easily, but you can't go from sanctioned to unsanctioned back to sanctioned without going through the first sanctioned team. So that's where it could get a little bit dicey if you don't end things on good terms. So really make sure you handle yourself professionally. You don't just leave teams out to dry, because they probably will hold a grudge on you if you do that. So one thing to really keep in mind, I've seen players get kind of pinched with this in the past, so I want to throw that out there. Next way players might get affected is the cost. Now, right now they're announcing that everything is going to be free. Honestly, I don't know how they're going to do this, because Hockey Canada is not funding them anymore. Probably, the ownership, sponsors, and all that stuff might fund everything. It might be a little bit tough though. I think they're getting a little bit ahead of themselves. I have a hard time to see how they're going to fund everything. Players won't have to pay billet fees, equipment, league, and all that kind of stuff. But we'll see. If they're able to do it completely free for players, I think with the unsanctioned portion and being completely free, then the caliber might actually go up and they might be able to compete with the USHL. So for you guys, the cost is still up in the air. Right now they're announcing that it's going to be completely free, but we'll see here moving forward how the cost is going to be. But again, I think the cost is still going to be, if they do end up charging something, it's going to be very minimal compared to other leagues like the CCHL, OJHL, and all that stuff. And last but not least, in terms of the caliber, some people have risen the question, like, how's the caliber going to be affected, right? Will it go down because they're not sanctioned anymore? I think it's going to be the opposite, actually. I think because they have less rules, it's probably going to go up slightly, especially if they're able to get those really good imports, if they're able to get those really elite 16 to 17-year-old hockey players and convince them not to go major junior and to go NCAA D1 instead. If they're able to get those guys, I think the caliber and the skill will go up quite a bit. So I think that's where I see it going, honestly, but it's hard to tell, right? We won't know until we see it. So for those of you who are worried about the caliber going down, I don't think that's going to be the case. It's either going to stay the same or it's going to go up a slight tier. So as a recap to all of this, in my opinion on the matter, I think, it's an unprecedented move that's never been seen before in the junior hockey world, especially in Canada, where it's been more tight-net thing in the future and everybody's been sanctioned, all the good leagues anyways. So it's an unprecedented move, and I feel like it might cause other leagues to at least think about doing a similar thing. If they feel like they can sponsor themselves and everything, I couldn't see why other leagues might not follow this trend, but we'll see. Only time will tell moving forward. In terms of for the players, I think honestly it's probably a net positive for most players because there's less restriction and there's a bit more freedom. There's a bit of a catch-22 where you can kind of, go from sanctioned to unsanctioned to another sanction where it might get a bit tougher. But overall, I think the players will have more freedom. I think the caliber is going to go up as well. So I think overall, it's probably a net positive, but again, it's hard to say. Only time will tell how this plays out. And I might eat my words here in a couple years down the road if it really doesn't pan out well for the BCHL, but we'll see. We'll see. It's a super interesting thing that just happened, and I'm excited to see how it plays out here moving forward. All right, my friends, that is it for the video. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you guys got some value out of it, and hopefully this kind of clarified, the big news in junior hockey here about the BCHL. So if you did get some value out of it, if you haven't already, absolutely destroy that like button. It goes a long way for the algorithm here. And if you're new here, consider hitting that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss another video moving forward. Also too, if you had any questions, anything whatsoever, feel free to drop them down below or send us a private email at info@ahadvising.com and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. All right guys, that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you on that next one.